MyCore is on a mission to be the world's most people-centric company. The purpose of this podcast is to get to the core of people. I'm your host, Nathan Bourne, and I invite you to join me as we deep dive into the personal and professional lives of our guests. We're going to learn who they are, why they exist, and what they do. We're going to hear their stories, the good, the bad, and the ugly. In other words, we're going to talk to some really cool people. Welcome to the MyCore podcast. Hey, welcome to the MyCore podcast. Your host, Nathan Bourne here. Super pumped with my good buddy, Mark Wojcik. What's up, man?
Hey, Nathan. Happy afternoon, morning, day, whatever part of the universe that we're in.
Right. You're in North Carolina. I was actually there yesterday. Yep. I drove back like 7 hours, not with you, but a couple hours from you. And I'm super stoked for this episode to get into your story. I know you're going to be with us out in Eugene for the MyCore Collective. But yeah, man, I think it's been, has it been like a couple years since we connected? Like when was it that Pierce initially connected us?
Yeah, a couple summers ago.
First, you were just having a baby at that time, right? Or about
That's
to?
Right.
Or...
We had a newborn. Yeah, she was fresh out the oven.
That's awesome. How's that going? How's fatherhood?
Yeah, it has its days where it's great and it has its days where it's awesome. And, there's very little in between, but I never thought of myself as a father, even though having like an unbelievable upbringing and being really close to my parents. I don't know. I never saw myself as a father. So it was a beautiful accident between my wife and I. And it's been great. Unbelievable motivator. And really helped, see a different side of me that I never knew I had.
That's cool, man. Yeah. I started in entrepreneurship pretty early at like age 20, and I had a decent start, and I would go to these events and I would speak and train. And these people would come up to me and they would ask me like, hey, because at this time I was probably 25 and I had 2 kids at the time. So I was 25. I had 2 daughters. I'm now 36 with 4 kids, 12, 10, 7, and 3. And I would get these questions like, where do you find your drive? Or like, how do you, lead or whatever? And then I'd be like, do you have any kids? And it'd be like a 21-year-old, like, dude, And he'd be like, no. I'd be like, cool. You want the secret, man? He's like, yeah. I'm like, go knock somebody up. And I'm like, it was obviously like a sick way of saying it. And they were like, what? And I just can say off the wall things, or it'd be even like girls would be like, yeah, you guys don't need to get pregnant. And they're like, what the hell is he talking about? I'm like, oh my God. Okay, let me shoot it to you differently. When you stop living for yourself and you realize the responsibility that you have to build a legacy and to provide and like protect, you will find a whole nother sense of purpose and a whole nother source of energy, because it's just not about you anymore. So it sounds like that's part of this experience that you've had the last 2 years of being a parent.
Absolutely. I hate to admit, but it's pretty apparent now as an adult, and as a father, that I've been really selfish. I've been really a selfish person most of my life. And not in like a negative way, like
jerk, but yeah,
like stealing, cheating, lying. It's never like the negative components of selfishness. But I've just always looked out for number one, and not to mean that I'm not empathetic and not sympathetic, and I give to charity. I support those less fortunate, but like when it really comes down to it, it's my house and home, and am I okay? And now with a daughter, 2.5-year-old girl, it's truly not about me. That is for damn sure. It is not about me. It is not about me if I want to sleep in on a Saturday morning. She's waking up and ready to go.
Right.
It is not about me wanting to watch College Game Day, even. Considering that it's football season now.
Right.
She wants to watch Bluey. you know. So it's
By the way,
selflessness.
talk about like feeling inadequate. Dude, if you watch Bluey, fuck that dad. Like everyone, that dude make you feel like crap about yourself real quick. I'm like, bro, do you even have a job? And they'll try to
Yeah,
like bake in that he does work. I'm like, nah, man. So I love Bluey, but he's like the epitome of a father. Like goals, man. That
yeah.
guy's nuts.
If only we could be fictional dogs,
Right, right. I'm
cartoon dogs, have it all,
like,
man.
yeah. They never talk about his herniated discs. You know, like, do you have sleep apnea? Didn't think so.
I
Dude,
was at
that's
this.
awesome though, man. I mean, I appreciate you being like real about that.
Yeah,
I grew up in a home where I mean, there's 9 of us, so there wasn't much room for selfishness,
good
almost
kid.
to like the other side of the spectrum where I don't know how to even like take care of myself, you know, like look out for myself. Like my self-care has been like a major problem, and it's ended up being detrimental because I've like crashed and burned at times. So do you have other siblings? I mean, I know you're not saying selfish like you're a jerk. You're saying it like you just didn't have to worry about other people's other people's
Yeah.
needs.
Yeah, yeah. I have a younger sister. She's about 4 years, 4.5 years younger than me. Depending on the time of the year, we're 4 years older than I'm 4 years older than her, or 5 years, depending on the time of the year. So it's not like we were right next to each other in age. And so I
Right.
think that separation helped that, by the time she was born, I was in whatever, like kindergarten or first grade. So there wasn't like natural like competition for resources or attention in some capacity. I'd already sort of grown up, I feel like, at least that's what I remember when, in reality, that was like 35 years ago, 37 years ago.
Right.
But
But in a
we're
way,
very,
you had maybe almost ish. Probably both of you had like some only child experiences where it was like just you for a while, or she was then in the home when you weren't and graduated.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It was crazy being so close, with my younger sister all throughout till I went to college. And then we went kind of cold turkey of no relationship other than, at holidays and just kind of keeping up randomly over the phone or text or whatever for the better part of 10 years. And she just recently, her and her family just recently, about 2 years ago, just moved to Charlotte. And since I was 18 years old, we hadn't lived in the same city. And so for
Wow.
20 years, after being so close for the first half of our lives,
Right.
for 20 years we lived apart almost. And so it's like been a kind of a reunion of sorts, but
That's cool.
also a little bit of an additional kind of mental capacity check
Mm.
on the, hey, we live 2.5 miles away from each other. Let's hang out. Hey, like, can you hang out with my kids while I run some errands? And it's like, I didn't have these responsibilities or, you look at them as burden. It's not a burden. It's my
Right.
sister, one of my best friends. And I love her husband as well. A great dude. But it's a new thing in your life of on top of, running your own family, having your own friends, having your own relationships, running a business. Now it's another layer of either engagement or commitment. So it's quite
Yeah,
unique.
man. I'm excited to dive into your story. I mean, as I've been preparing my thoughts for this conversation, this episode, you try to come up with like an angle or a way that you want to frame it. And I've found after now doing however many, I think I'm on like coming up on episode 40, it end up just sort of taking its own shape. So I don't try to control it much. But just in the sense of being intentional, I think something that I appreciate about you, Mark, or I don't think I do appreciate it, is that like for me, I had a lot of trauma in my background. I had a lot of adversity, and like nobody gets out of this thing unscathed, right? It's just
Yeah.
it's like this too. It's like it's not like are you screwing up your kids? It's like how are you screwing them up? I'm definitely screwing up my kids. But we've talked before and just had like kind of heart to heart bro talks around your father as this really pivotal like character in your
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
And I want to dive into that a little bit because I think that when you are born into a home where there's a strong father figure, whether that's like an alpha male or somebody that's had a lot of success or has reached like rare air in their career or in their influence, it seems to create kind of one of two scenarios where the like privilege that could come from that or the opportunities that could come from
Yeah.
that on one hand are awesome, right? Because you get to go to good schools and live in nice neighborhoods and connect with quality people. But there's like an underbelly to that sometimes where finding purpose or finding drive can maybe be delayed, right? Until
Mm-hmm.
you're 30 or till you have a kid or till some other life event where my story is very different than that. But I got my own set of daddy issues, that it sounds like you do too. So for our listeners, just to kind of set the stage, it's my understanding that your father has had a very successful career in corporate America, in sales and leadership.
Yeah.
Tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about your dad, and I'd love to get into those daddy issues if you're down.
Oh my God. Well, it's a different connotation from where I come from, what
Right.
daddy issues are. Look, my dad's a man. Look, I was named after him. Okay. So from very
Cool.
beginning of life, there's always kind of been this like big shoes to fill
Yeah. Pressure.
sort of philosophy. So as a junior, right, sharing the same name as my father, it was always kind of looking up to him as like, man, this is who I'm going to be one day. Right. And, he started his career. He came from a very, very modest upbringing in Cleveland, Ohio, and worked his way to get a college scholarship, playing golf, and left
Oh,
Cleveland,
wow.
Ohio, and went to school down south at Clemson, and said, I'm never going back to Ohio. First of all, it's way better down here in the South.
Yeah.
And right after college, started working in the copy machine industry. Yeah, I
No
mean,
shit.
seriously, picture it like Dwight
And Jim.
and Jim at the office, slinging papers, kind of like that, but actually slinging the machines themselves.
At the time, that was
So
probably like a pretty advanced technology.
yeah. From what you can imagine, this would have been like early '80s, mid '80s, right? So
Oh,
driving door to door to private practices or different businesses and saying, hey, you need to make copies of your papers. Well, we have the tool for it. And, from there working up until he retired a couple of years ago and now is very involved in my business,
cool.
selling computer software, SaaS technology, working for NASDAQ traded international fortune level companies and leading sales teams of 10, 20, 30 people globally.
Wow.
And, that's the beginning and the end. The middle is what takes, is where all great things happen in the
Right.
story. And so I grew up with that, man. I grew up with the talks at the dinner table about making deals
Yeah.
and
Hitting
hitting,
bonuses. Yeah.
yeah, and hitting quota and oh, it's the end of the quarter kind of thing. I say I grew up with that at the dinner table, but honestly, a lot of my childhood, I hate to say, my dad wasn't around. He was always, I put it that way. That's a bad way to say it because he was always there.
Right. Right.
He
In the
was
important moments.
always there,
Yeah.
but not always around.
So like he wasn't absent minded, but he was physically not there often because he was on the
Physically,
road.
he's on the road. He's
Yeah.
at client sites. He's flying here. He's flying there.
They weren't doing Zoom meetings to close deals, right? I mean, if he was
No,
going to open a new territory or lead a national or even he had to be there.
had to be there.
Yeah.
So, it was Monday through Thursday, Monday through Friday was me, my mom, and my sister. And my mom's, she was at home. They made that decision together when I was born. And, my mom worked her ass off. Absolutely. some might say arguably harder than the work that my dad put in, right? But
Yeah.
so I grew up with that, looking at my dad like this absolute grinder, like
Yeah.
this hustler, this guy that like no excuses, play like a champion. This like there's no off days. There's no I'm in a bad mood or I just mentally I just don't have it today. It was like I'm going to get it done because my family is what I'm doing this for. And so I always had that respect, but through my younger years, like through school and stuff, I think my mind now at almost 40 years old, I look ahead and I look back, but I see myself in the past looking ahead that like I looked at school like, why do I need to do this? Why do
Right.
I need freaking chemistry? Why do
Right.
I need this like, geometry and stuff? Like this is stupid because I know I'm going to be a sales executive like
Right.
my dad.
Right. It's a matter of time.
And all it takes, in my view, right, is hard work and being convincing and persuasive and
Good
having a good
personality, a little charm. Yeah.
yeah, having a good
Yeah.
personality and a sense of humor and ability to kind of be a renaissance guy, talk a little bit about a lot of different things. And so I'm like, I didn't work hard in school.
Mm.
I didn't. I was like, I was naturally kind of intellectual, I guess. I was the ultimate 3.0 student, like through all of school, where like I showed up, I didn't ditch
Yeah.
class,
Yeah.
I
Right.
didn't not do my homework, but I just didn't go the extra mile because the difference between getting a B and getting an A, I wasn't willing to put that effort.
Right.
I wasn't. Because it didn't matter to me, the difference between B and A, the
Did
difference
your
between
father put pressure? Like, did he know? It's an interesting thing too, like as a parent, because and an entrepreneur, like I know how meaningless school can be. I
yeah,
also was sort of the opposite. I went that extra mile, but I did it from like a fear based position because I was like, I got to get out of poverty, so I have to get straight A's. So it
yeah.
wasn't healthy. Um, was your father somebody that gave you shit for not getting a 4.0, or was he like, yeah, screw it, you're probably being sales too? I'm curious.
No, where that element came into play in my past, and really the only time we ever had any static, my dad and I, was through golf. My dad played college golf. He was recruited to play at a variety of different colleges. Extremely talented golfer, and part of that emulizing of my dad, I wanted to play college golf. And it
Yeah.
was one of those things that I threw out there into the world. Like, I want to play college golf. I want to play
Yeah.
college golf. But then I never really worked enough, even though I had all the opportunities. We were
Mm.
members of country clubs. He'd pay for entries. We'd travel. He'd pay entries to tournaments. I had all the newest clubs. I had lessons weekly. And I never got quite good enough to truly be able to make a career out of it. And I think I realized that early on that I was never either one mentally stable enough or in some cases mentally weird enough to be that good
Right.
at golf. But I said that that's what I wanted to do.
Mm.
And so when I would say that, he would try to hold me accountable, right? Because he knew what it took to get to
Right.
that
He did
level.
it. Yeah.
He did it. And so he'd be on the road, he'd travel, right? And there would be some of these moments where I'm playing video games or I'm chatting with girls on AIM because that's what I
Yeah,
wanted.
I am. That's
That's what I,
awesome.
that's what I
Take me
wanted to
back.
do. You know, that's what I'd rather be doing than
You'd
at the
pop the
driving range.
AOL CD in that had like 6,000 hours of internet. Remember
Oh
they would
yeah,
send you those, and it was like, as it was dial up.
the
Yeah,
dial-up
man.
on the Gateway
How old are you, Mark? We're
2000.
like the same age. Are you a little bit older?
I'm 38.
Okay, I'm 36. So yeah.
I'll be 39 in a couple of months. But yeah, so I would get those calls, and sometimes he'd ask my mom like, "Hey, did Mark go to the driving range today, or did he practice chipping or practice putting?" And if the answer was no, my mom would say, "Hey, look, that's y'all's conversation." And
Yeah.
so his drive for me and holding me accountable on golf was purely through the lens of that's what I said I wanted to do. And his what I see now as a father and as an adult looking back is he wanted everything for me in the greatest sense. He wanted everything for me
Right.
and my family and my sister, right? Even if I didn't want it truly myself.
Mm,
And trying to hold me accountable to that. But it was never about school. That was the only thing that he knew what it took because he had been there.
right.
And even into the professional life, when I started to learn what it was about, being an adult and leaving college. Did we revisit that again of kind of where do I need to go and what do I need to do in life to achieve the results or be the best version of myself. But that was it. That was really the only thing that we ever had struggles with. And then I think when my senior year came around and I got accepted to college, 3 weeks after applying, and it was like the very beginning of my senior year. And I knew that I basically nothing could go wrong unless I just flunked out completely. And I
Right.
looked at golf as well. I know I'm committed to not playing golf in college. I'm going to University of South Carolina. I'm probably going to join a fraternity and party and experience SEC football and just have this
Yeah.
unbelievable college experience.
Wear
So I'm just going to
Sperry's every day.
yeah, exactly. And I'm just going to play golf like crazy and play video games and just enjoy my entire senior year. So, we kind of acknowledged, all right, golf's always going to be in my life in some capacity, but it's not this hardcore grind that needs to be.
Yeah, man. I've got questions. So you stated that you said at one point, I'm gonna play college golf. I'm gonna play golf
Yeah.
in college, which is funny because you maybe just didn't clarify what you meant. You're like, no, I'm gonna be playing golf in college. It just said I'm gonna be drinking at 10 a.m. With my buds, and then
Nailed it.
going to the tailgate. Yeah, like
It was
so you
foreshadowing.
weren't wrong.
Yeah, it was good foreshadowing.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
But did you like at what age did that pressure and or premonition or like this thought that you were like, okay, in this way I can follow in my father's footsteps? Was that like middle school, high school, child? Like when did you like really start thinking about being a like essentially pro or like high level golfer?
yeah. I was my best at golf at probably 17 years old, 16 or 17 years old. I was my best at golf physically, but where I wasn't my best was mentally, and that's where I think I've always struggled. Even in business, even up until this year, I practice a lot more kind of manifesting now and
No.
meditation that I've really gotten into recently, but I realized that I never was strong enough mentally, that setbacks, mistakes turned into blaming myself, feeling sorry for myself. Setbacks were never met. I never looked at setbacks as like a challenge to, this is an opportunity to overcome and be even bigger, better version of yourself. It was never like that. If I double bogeyed the first hole, Nathan, I like it was. You might as well just save us a bunch of time, and just walk away because it was going to be really hard to recover from that.
You couldn't like the resiliency of your mind
Yeah.
just wasn't there where you were like, okay, let me just forget that, recover. It was like, fuck this. And you just
Yep.
couldn't come back.
And that's what the best golfers are so good at, is realizing that it's behind you, it's the past, you can't control it and you can't affect it. And honestly, I dealt with that. I've dealt with that a lot of my life. And part of it is just being so, again, so like amazed and like impressed and like in awe of my dad's work ethic,
Right.
that my mind, instead of being like, I really want to go the extra mile to be like him, I really want to go to this extra gear. It was never like that. It was immediately the opposite, where you're never going to get, you don't have what it takes. You don't have the guts. You're never going to push to the extra
Did
level.
he ever say those things to you?
No, hell no. No. And that's what's the craziest part. It was always self-inflicted. Really
Wow.
sadly, it was always self-inflicted. My dad was
So it's not even like he was critical of you, quote unquote, not living up to him or
never,
living up to his work. You filled that blank in.
always supportive, 100%. To the very last breath. God forbid isn't for another 30 years.
Man,
We
that's
hope
tough.
that's the case. So it was self-inflicted, man. It's crazy. Because again, growing up in such a positive household with so much love and very close friends within my family, between a unique relationship between my dad and I, my sister and I, my mom and I, and then as a unit, right, the four of us, that was self-inflicted. And I invite scientists maybe to do some tests to figure out where that really stems from.
What
But
about like vulnerability? Was your father ever, or is he ever open about the things in his life that he is weak at or bad at?
yeah, yes and no, because look, the things in his life that I think gave him that resiliency are the things that he keeps. Um, he doesn't want us to feel sorry for him ever. It's like,
Right.
why, we've dipped into upbringing and, conditions in his life and his family and his parents working and, being the youngest son and just the hardships of kind of blue collar America, frankly. He never wanted to like throw it out there like, oh, I came from this and look where I am now. You should feel sorry for me kind of thing. It was never, ever like that. Never like that.
Good for him, man.
He's
That's wild.
now in his 60s and like as a retired guy, he's much more sentimental anyway. And he'll tell some stories of the
Yeah.
past, but, always wanted us to feel like we have every opportunity and there's no reason to, kind of be sad for him or to grow up looking at him like this major success story that came from nothing and look at what you have in front of you. His sole motivation is and always has been to give his family the best experience that they could ever possibly have. That's it.
Great, man.
Bar
That's
none.
so cool. Yeah. Damn.
Bar none.
That's awesome, man. I mean, I wish I could say the same as I sit here and talk to you and listen to this upbringing and story and dynamic. It makes me think of my sons. I have 4 children, 2 girls, 2 boys, and I'm really thankful. I think God knew what he was doing by giving me my daughters first, because it just gives me like a little bit more runway to get my shit together, for my sons.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I'm probably a little bit more naturally of a girl dad. Like, one, I kind of like girly shit, so I'm like, Taylor Swift, like, let's talk about it, So I kind of could just naturally like, and I'm kind of a weird character in that, like, I like stuff that most manly men don't, but I also am not a girl. Like, I'm like, I will fuck you up. You want to find out? Like, I'll do it in this silly outfit or whatever. So with my sons, particularly my 7-year-old, I don't know, it's been interesting to watch. Like, there was a moment there where he was saying things like, I'm never going to wrestle. And I'm like, this is interesting. Like, my 5-6-year-old son, this was a couple years ago, has already like clocked that wrestling was my thing. That's what I did in college. That was my meal ticket. That was my way. And he's like, I'm not doing that. And I'm like, damn, this starts this early. Like, at
Wow.
5 or 6, a son will be like, I'm going to be different than you, or I don't want to follow in your footsteps. And then it makes me feel like, obviously, I'm probably not as good as your dad. Like, what did I do? Like, to screw that up. Now, it's been interesting because I took him out on a mat. He did phenomenally well, like, was like effing these kids up, and then didn't want to do it. And knowing that I'd like to play the long game on this, I'm like, cool, I'm not going to push this. But
Sure.
now that he's 7 and a half, really, he's just a little more built, a little more aggressive, a little more confident. And I've got him talking to me like, hey, buddy, would you, because it's a winter sport, it'll be coming up here. And he's like, I'll do it. I'm like, okay, cool. So hopefully the couple year, like, didn't put pressure on him, let it be, will work out for him to want to be able to do it. But there was a moment there where I was like, damn, he got daddy issues already? Like, when it comes to the things that I did and I do or am I part of. So that's cool that you, I mean, I'm sure underneath all that, I'm not your therapist. There's got to be like that's fucking challenging, dude. Like, you know, like my dad was so to give you context, my dad, similarly to your dad, super talented, 6'2". The way I describe him is he looks like Mel Gibson and George Clooney had a baby. I mean, he's a super handsome dude, lots of stature. And he was a freak of nature. He was the #1 recruit in the country for soccer, ended up going full scholarship to UConn and left after a month, married my mom, had 9 kids, and went completely off the grid. And he was essentially unemployed the entire time, would disappear for extended periods of time. And most recently, in a very odd twist, he decided to finally get a job as a correctional officer at like 62 years old. So he was, for all intents and purposes, like not, he completely like imploded at like 18 years old and never recovered. So relative to that, if you just like paid basic bills, stayed in like a home for more than 6 months before getting evicted, and didn't do like drugs, you would be like massively successful compared to him.
Super dad. Yeah.
Right. And it's like, it's hard to even, because I know he's not going to listen to this, but like it's my brothers will, you know what I mean? And they have their own takes. But so it's kind of interesting, like the generational components, right? Of like, what's the rhyme or reason? Is it like success, failure, success, failure? Is it like success, 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 failure, failure? It's like there's examples of everything. It kind of proves how powerful personal choice is. But you just seem that you've like acknowledged that, okay, I'm his junior. In some ways, I can't give myself the grit and the drive because I grew up going to country clubs and shit. You know what I mean? But I still am smart and capable and driven, and I have work ethic. So it's got to be interesting to kind of like honor your father, find your own identity. You have the same damn name. You also don't have any other brothers. So like for me, I'm one of 9 children, 6 boys. There's 5 other guys that I'm like, you guys can be like dad. I'll be different. So it's just, it's fascinating to me that the way you've had to navigate this.
Yeah. And I mean, even into the professional world, right? I've had this kind of self-identity thing for forever, for as long as I can remember. I've always been the class clown to an extent. I've always been the one that, whether you're laughing with me or laughing at me, like
You're going to
at
laugh.
least, yeah, you're going to laugh, or like at least, you know, I know that there's, you know, some attention on me, or I can't really put my finger on it, but there's been these times in life where, you know, I've struggled to feel who, like, am I cool? Right. Do I fit in? And like, oh, I'm not cool. I don't fit in. I don't like the things that the cool kids are doing. I want to be in with them, but like, also I despise them because of
like,
X, Y, and Z
No.
reason, that I struggled to have this association, but also be my own identity. Like I always struggled with that. We moved around a lot, just, you know, of course, my dad's career and opportunities, like, were jobs, promotions,
Right.
opportunities, you know, being recruited to different companies and stuff. You know, we went with it. And so, you know, and not until like college, I found my people, you know, I found my groove. I joined a fraternity, a social fraternity, and even still, I was kind of on the outside looking in a little bit, even within that association for the first couple of years. Struggled to really kind of connect with everybody and also be myself. And I think one thing leading into my professional career where I started to hit on all cylinders was, you know, joining and forging a career in the recruiting and staffing business, and the industry of hiring, the industry of people, the people as a service business, the people as a product business. But even leading up to that, you know, I was leaving college like the coolest guy on campus. I struggled to really see the next phase. I struggled to leave that environment where I felt like inside me was the coolest, sharpest, most confident, top version of me.
Hmm.
People respected me. I had acknowledgement. I knew everybody.
This was in college.
Yeah, I was well respected. And then, graduating college, I couldn't leave it, man. I
Right.
couldn't leave it physically. I hung out in the same college town, for another 6 or 8 months before finally like spreading my wings, so to speak, maybe close
Dude,
to a
let's keep
year.
talking about this because it's almost like the classic peaked in high school, but it's like for you maybe peaked. Not that I'm not saying you did, but like the stereotype of that you
Peaked in
peaked
college.
in college, right? That like that
Totally.
was your moment, and that's interesting. The moving around part, I can relate to this in that it wasn't until my high school years that I was in the same like community and area, and
Yeah,
like we moved around a bunch in that area, but luckily it was like a rural part of Maryland and Ocean City where like 8 towns go to the same high school. So even though in 4 years of high school I think we probably moved 10 times, I stayed in the same school. So sports,
sure.
schools, girls, like all that stayed the same.
Big
um
difference.
but you found this like identity, this community, frat life, college, and you got to go to a great, fun school. We were on your campus for
Yep.
the MyCore event just in the spring. I obviously thought of you. I was like, this would be a sick place to go to school. Like this looks awesome. And then are you saying that you graduate from college, you're what, 22,
Yeah.
21,
Yeah.
22, and you like held on to that for how long? Like
Probably 4 years.
another 4. Yeah.
I mean, in all seriousness, I didn't leave Columbia and was still, because a lot of my friends didn't graduate till my roommates, right? We had a house in Columbia that my dad actually owned, right? So here's another situation. I was getting by rent free. Well, it must be
Right.
nice, right? Where my other 4 roommates were paying rent to my father. And, I was working delivery jobs, part-time jobs. And I would use the money that I made to pay for my living expenses outside of rent. I didn't have books. I didn't have tuition. I didn't have dues because I wasn't in the fraternity anymore. And it basically just supported my party efforts. And,
Wow.
was having a lot of fun with the guys. I even turned down a job. It's the most ironic thing in the world, Nathan. I turned down a job 2 months after I graduated. I turned down a job with a recruiting and staffing agency in Columbia. I was offered a
Which is
job
now the industry, career, business that you have. You're like, nah,
15
I'm
years,
good. I'm
15
gonna
years.
smoke weed. I'm gonna go to these parties. I'm gonna like
Just keep going. Yeah, keep going.
keep the
I
party
turned down a
going.
job. Because I knew, and there was this like imposter syndrome that snuck back in. Even at that point, I looked at myself and I looked at my surroundings, and I said, all my friends are still in college. Technically, they're
Right.
not graduating to December, and these guys are talking about staff meetings every morning at 8 a.m. Monday through Friday, and I was like, "There's no fucking way that I'm going to those staff meetings. There's no way."
There's no
And so
way.
in my
You're like,
mind,
I go to bed at 4 a.m. Like
there's no way.
I'm at afters at that time. Like,
There's no way. Tuesday mixers, Thursday night mixer. Yeah, there's no way. And so I made the decision in my mind that that's not the work I wanted to do. That job wasn't for me anyway. Like it's not the path.
right.
I
All
don't need it.
justification. Yeah.
I'll find something else. And even at that point, when I turned that job down, my dad, stood by me and he like let me figure it out on my own, not ruling with an iron fist. He could have taken that route. He could have cracked the whip and said,
Right.
"Look, dude, I've been paying your rent in this house that I own for the last 3 years. Like you're done with college. You're 22. It's time to figure it out or else." He could have.
So
He
is
could
there
have.
a little bit of like enablement there? Like did he enable you at times?
Maybe, maybe it's the opposite of what he had growing up. No.
Right.
And that motivation always wanting to be about, making sure that I and my family, my sister, my mom have the best life they could possibly have.
Right.
And so maybe there was some enablement. Now, it was also a weird time in the economy. And I think for the first time in my dad's professional career that he struggled with like either finding a job or being in a job in,
Right.
2008, 2009 timeframe. It was,
Right.
it was a weird time. And so there were things going on behind the scenes that I'm only now privy to later in life that of how potentially dire some of the situations were.
Right.
financially with my mom and dad. And then my sister was then going to college right after me. And so I didn't realize that. But it could
Yeah.
have been some enablement.
And what's so interesting too, right? It's like you can look at this a couple ways. One is like, come on, man, grow up. But it's also like you're 22, 23, you're still like, even if you took those 4 years and your buddies maybe are getting grad degrees or they've got entry level jobs and you're just
Yeah.
kind of like trying to figure your shit out, in the grand scheme of things, what you then kind of snapped out of it at 25, 26. Like, take me to where you started to adult. Like, when did you start adulting?
Well, I absolutely know what it was.
Okay.
I bounced around in a couple of sales jobs. Actually, the way my dad convinced me or hooked me to move back to Charlotte and kind of focus on my career was he had started working for a startup company,
Hmm.
and only 8 or 9 people in the company, and he was head of sales, and they were trying to get this thing off the ground, maybe get it purchased or private equity or whatever. And so he's like, "Hey, you can come work for me." And I reported to someone else technically, and I only worked a kind of a weekly rate, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak, and really just wasn't putting the time and effort on that either. Would find ways to sneak away, would find ways to make excuses, would find ways to drag my feet. Just the application, I just couldn't get my mind somehow trained that you have to work hard. And then I went into a call center job. I said, all right, I got to get away from my dad. I can't be working for him because I'm letting him down in this aspect. And, I went and worked in a call center selling direct TV, and you're chained to a desk and literally taking phone calls as soon as it beeps, you got to sell. And I survived in that environment for 8, 9 months, and then worked at another company that, just wasn't making ends meet, wasn't applying myself, they gave me an inch, I took a mile. And then not
By the way, man,
until
I just want to acknowledge, like, I know this is not a super fun conversation to have. Like, and I want to acknowledge, for whatever it's worth, like your vulnerability around it, your candor, like just keeping it real. Cause that's
yeah,
the goal of this podcast, is to get to like the core, right? And the like real talk of like, yeah, man, I didn't have any fucking drive, like literally.
straight
And
up.
the craziest part about your story that's like fucking me up is like, it sounds like a story or a journey through all these years, as you kind of approach your 30s, that would feel like a man, your father, was putting like this pressure on you, but actually he was like unconditionally loving you. And that was kind of fucking you
Crazy,
up in a weird way.
crazy.
It's crazy.
Now that you
I
say it,
assumed your dad was a dick this whole time. It's like, no, actually, he's literally not.
he's literally the coolest guy ever. Yeah, and now looking back, could that have been part of the problem? Like, did in the back of my mind that 3.0 student that I mentioned think of it like, well, I can always fall back that I'm going to be taken care of. Like,
Right.
if something doesn't work out, am I I'm still going to land in the nest, so to speak.
Oh, man.
But seeing friends, colleagues, associates start forging a career, working, living in Charlotte, seeing guys working in banking, and I also wanted to vibe with them. These are my people. These are my associates. Again, feeling like I peaked in college. Well, these are my same guys.
Right.
And I need to live like them and be able to go to sushi dinners or buy shots at the bar. And
Right.
meanwhile, I'm making this 30 grand base salary,
In a
and
call center. Yeah.
yeah, and not making ends meet, and running up a hefty credit card debt, and finding myself in depression and clinically depressed, and
What age are you? The way you're describing, right? Take me to like the age.
23, 20,
Okay.
23, 22, 23.
So
Um,
in those years post college, you you were like depressed.
yeah, clinically taking medication. I weighed
No
like
shit.
200 pounds. Just not the healthiest lifestyle.
How tall are you, Mark? We've never met in person.
5'11".
Me too. Yeah. So you were 5'11", 200 pounds, but like an unhealthy, like you had gained weight.
Oh yeah. Oh
Okay.
yeah. They call it
Like
the freshman,
inflammation, fear, lack of
yeah.
sleep. Just you look like shit.
Mentally, just in a bad spot mentally, you know. And this credit card debt, that I started racking up, and just finding it so hard to come to terms with being a grown up, and the past is the past, and this time that I was the coolest cat on campus is
Yeah, man.
over. And now
Fucking
you're
over.
a
Yeah.
freshman again, and you got to figure out how to make your way, learn how to learn how to have a routine, be responsible. You can't show up late, you can't mail it in because you're hungover. Like, I really had struggles with that. And then I found myself so far behind in my job that I left the call center for, because the bosses were traveling all the time. So it was very limited oversight. And they gave me an inch, I took a mile. And
Right.
I just didn't apply myself at all, found myself depressed, battling anxiety. And I remember telling my mom one time, just being like, man, I just want enough money. All I care about is having enough money to go to a steak dinner just for the hell of it. Like, just because I want to. If I want to go get a filet mignon at Del Frisco's
I want
or
to go do
Capitol
it.
Grill or Bruce Chris, I'm going to do it just because I can. Not every time, not every night, not every
Yeah,
week,
yeah, yeah.
but like, that's it. That's all I want, is really to enjoy the finer things in life if and when I want to. And I remember turning to my dad and just being like, I don't know what I'm doing, man. I'm lost. I suck. Here I am again. And he said, I've got a colleague. He runs a recruiting agency. We're not close friends or nothing, but we're associates in the country club. And why don't you reach out to him? Recruiting agencies, they get jobs for people. And I'm like, oh, really? Is that what it is? Not drawing the connection.
Bro, you're fucking funny.
Not drawing the
The
connection.
way
Keep
you
in
put
mind.
yourself in that time frame of like, I'm a fucking idiot. Hey, I gotta ask you a quick question, man. Because there's a real like parallel between your story and the biblical story of the prodigal son. Are you familiar with this?
I can't say that I am.
It's really powerful, man. I'll send you some like
I've certainly
literature.
heard of it, but I can't say that I know it
The
scripturally.
very short version, and I'm an amateur in the Bible. I'm not I'm a cursing Christian, so I know enough to be dangerous. But two sons, guy is a boss, he's a king, and it's not a myth, it's like true story, documented. He says to his two sons, like, hey, here's your inheritance. You can take it now. You can take it later. Like, let me know. The one son stays in the kingdom, continues to be present, work, like do the deal, is diligent, works. Second son says, I'll take it now. I'm going to go have fun. And he blows it. Like prostitutes, gambling, loses everything, fucks around. And he ends up so destitute that he has to come back and says, look, I'll be a servant. Like, you can put me with the servants and I'll live in the, servant quarters. And the thing that's really beautiful about the story, and the parable and the parallel, is that when the father sees his son who's been away for years coming into the land, he runs after him. It's a really touching story. And he's like, I'm not worthy. You know what I mean? Like, I fucked up. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a fuck up. And he's like, you're my son. And he puts a ring on him, gives him the robe. He's like, we're having the biggest feast ever to celebrate the return of my son. And, it's a parallel for how Jesus is with us, right? That like, no matter how much we fuck up, he's like pumped, he'll leave the 99, he'll go get the one. But it's this really wild story because there's like two types of people in this world. There's people like the one son who's like pissed and is like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, he's been out whoring it up, you know what I mean? Squandering all of your work, and you treat him this way. And it's just an interesting story because in a way it sounds like your father was like that king and you were kind of the prodigal son, not to that extent, but like you weren't investing your talents. You weren't like cultivating your skills. and you kind of knew you could come back at any point, and he would meet you with love, like cool, let me put you onto this dude, let me introduce you to that guy. So you were like a real life prodigal son story, man. That's
Yeah.
pretty crazy.
Yeah, I don't know if that's good or bad. But I guess it's true.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think it's good. I think it's good because it goes to show like how powerful love is, particularly for like a son. Like if my sons did something horrendous, and it's so sad when you see this stuff, like especially in the moment that we're in, right? Because like there's part of me that wants to see this 22-year-old kid that assassinated Charlie Kirk get hung by a fucking tree. You know what I mean? Like they should execute him. They should just kill him dead. And I think most people probably feel that way, just to go there and talk about something that is super touchy.
Why not?
But not his parents.
Yeah.
Not his father. You know what I mean? Like not the person that raised him. Not the person that allegedly turned him in. You know, who fucking knows if it's all a conspiracy and, you know, the guy's a robot. I don't know. You know what I mean? But what I do know is this shit's real. You know what I mean? And Charlie Kirk was shot in the fucking neck. You know what I mean? While just simply sharing his beliefs.
Yeah.
And I'm not somebody that believes with everything he says, but I like the dude, and it's fucking sad, and it's been heavy on my heart these last several days. But it just got me thinking, man, like what an interesting burden to carry. Like I don't think I would trade places with you, even though I have my my childhood trauma and my daddy issues, but mine has always been clear cut, which is like you have to do what your father didn't. You have to like break through in a way that your parents couldn't. I've never had a safety net. I've only ever been on a tightrope between two buildings, and if I fall, I'm fucked. So I'm actually impressed by people like you that find it eventually. Maybe you didn't find it like I did at fucking 10 years old, but it sounds like eventually, and I know we're kind of like going into this part of the story where you've found your now career, but I just wanted to insert that because as you were sharing that, I'm like, bro, you're the prodigal son, man. Like that's pretty crazy. You get to wear the ring and the robe and get the sandals and the feast, even though you weren't on your game for quite some time. And that's an impressive like love story, really.
Yeah. Never thought of it that way, but maybe it's worth reading into and getting to the brass tacks of that story, the prodigal son.
Yeah, I'll send you some stuff on it. It's a really there's also like takes on both, because there's like three characters. There's like the father, the son that did it the right way, and then the one that obviously screwed up. So I'll text you some material on it. But all right, take me back to where your father puts you on to the colleague and you're finding your path.
You know, it's a country club connection. It's not like they're best friends or anything, but you know, it was a contact of his, works at a recruiting agency, and I had no idea what recruiting was, even though evidently I had turned down a job in the recruiting industry like 2 years prior. And he said, you know, maybe they can help you get a job you really like, because my complaints was frustrated with the work. I was like, I'm not connected to my job. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know the angle. This isn't fulfilling. And so sure enough, I made this connection with a guy called Brad, a mentor of mine to this day. We spoke a couple of weeks ago. He gives me advice. He answers the phone when I have panics on recruiting or business related, entrepreneur related situations. And, you know, we go through this interview. I didn't even realize, I thought he was trying to match me up with a job. Throughout the course of the conversation, I realized the change of the kind of the temperament. And it's like, wait, he's trying to like see if I'm a fit to work here. And I'm
that
like,
was my question as you were sharing. I was like, the ambiguity. I'm like, wait, was he recruiting you to be at the recruiting firm, or was he trying to match make you?
Yeah, and so that's where it got kind of weird, and I'm like, okay, and he explains the work to me, and I guess I didn't draw the connections with the previous job I had turned down, albeit that was like industrial labor staffing, and I said I'm the whitest white collar guy. I can imagine doing staffing work for blue collar, boots on the ground guys that are going to be staring at me up and down, being like, why should I trust you with my career?
Right.
You know? And again, those kind of pre-downloaded ideals in my mind as to why I can't do something or why I don't do something.
Mm-hmm.
But fast forward, the biggest moment you asked me the question, Nathan, is like, when did I really get the kick in the pants?
Yeah.
And that was when Brad went to hire me, and after several rounds of interviews and stuff, and I want to work here. I want to do this. And at that time, I felt like I had gone so far in my last job that I just it run its course, that there's no turning back. I couldn't make it any better of the situation I was in. So I was kind of in a rock and a hard place. But he said, Mark, listen, before we go any further, I feel like it's only right that I call your father and have a man-to-man conversation with him about this, and that should it not work out, if it doesn't work out, if you don't pan out, that he understands that it's just business. And that moment, man, I realized what it meant to put in the extra work to get an A. And that a B or the occasional C wasn't was unacceptable, and certainly failure was not an option. And so my mindset that has always struggled with self-identity, has always struggled with, like, can you do it? Are you good enough? Or is it really worth the extra effort, or should you just keep coasting in life, knowing that there's a fallback plan? Well, this, my friend, was like the biggest eye opener for me, that hold on, there is no safety net in the boss going back to my dad saying, look, man, I gotta fire your son. There's no safety net. There's nothing comfortable and convenient about this guy talking in the country club. Yeah, Wojcik's kid couldn't hack it. Wojcik's kid, he was here for a cup of coffee.
He's chicken shit. He's privileged. He's a yuppie. He's
wealth skips
a generation. Like that, all that rhetoric was like, it snapped you the fuck out of it. Like, damn, this dude just read me my rights. Like, I would be embarrassing my father, myself, my family if I fuck around and take this. Like, I've taken so many things before this.
And I just turned 24, and that was the moment that I had to make it work. I had to do it. There was no failure, was not an option. I was taught in the industry to burn the ships, that if you want to be good at recruiting, that you really do have to pour yourself in and commit to it, like any other industry, real estate, insurance, sales, whatever it is, you got to make a name for yourself, because the first year to 2 years is straight up grinding and failing and building a network and building business until you can sustain yourself. And that was the moment. That was the moment in joining this industry that I said, literally, I have no backup plan and I can't afford to fail. Failure is not an option.
Wow, man. That's really interesting. Something that comes to mind for me is like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And you'd think that, like, for most people to have their day of disgust or to get a kick in the pants or a fire lit under them, it's got to be because their basic needs are being threatened: food, water, shelter. But at no point in that conversation, and that that's not going to happen. You're not going to be homeless. You're not going to get evicted. But it was almost like higher on the hierarchy became this new baseline for you.
Oh, yeah.
Where you were like, oh, I'm not letting this fail, because I will have to face a level of shame and embarrassment that is just not acceptable for everyone involved, right? And probably even more, what I also find interesting about it, and I'm a big believer in this is part of the leading with who message, is it's like it's very hard to find self-drive. It actually takes us back to the initial conversation. Go have 4 kids and see what your work ethic looks like. Imagine the conversation where your son did put the work in to wrestle, did want to follow in your footsteps, was accepted to the school, and you can't pay for it.
Yeah.
How's that conversation going to go in 10 years when he's not 7 but 17? Like, that's the type of shit that wakes me up every day, you know, and makes me go like, no, that's not going to fucking happen. Like, I'm going to get ahead of those conversations or get ahead of those situations. But that's just fascinating to me that it took everything that it took. So 24 years of your life, but then that guy, thank God for that guy, because he might've thought it, but not said it. Yeah. Right. He didn't have to say that to you. He could have just been like, you're a sharp kid. You got the faculties to do this. And then in the back of his head think, I wonder if he's going to fuck this up and I'm going to fire him in 90 days. But the fact that he said it to you was like, boom, life-changing.
That was the that was the defining moment where I knew I had to apply myself. And you're right. If it had been any other situation, knowing my mental disposition at the time of life, I would have absolutely taken the easy way out. I would have given minimal effort. I would have given base level, show up, physically be present, as I had throughout my scholastic career. And I would have just mailed it in. And that you know, I got to talk to your father to make sure that he understands that if something goes wrong, that it's kind of not held on, you know, it's not my fault. And there's no hard feelings between us as, you know, golf colleagues or whatever. And there's no hard feelings. So I was determined to not let that happen. Determined. And so much so that you fast forward the tape a decade, right? So I worked in this environment. I worked for that same company, Nathan, for almost 10 years, just short of 10 years.
In that specific company?
Yeah.
Damn. So you got anchored on like a psychological level, a commitment level. It was like your whole life in one moment got like finally fucking driven into the ground and like the flag was planted.
And so much so that later on, it sort of became this kind of Stockholm syndrome. I started seeing the opposite effect that I had traditionally done. It's like, I've given so much to this business and this organization. And now looking around, I feel like I've outgrown it. And I feel like I can do something bigger. I feel like I can do something better. I feel like I can make a bigger impact, a better name for myself. I feel like my brand could be potentially bigger and better and greater than the brand that I forged within the walls of this organization. And, you know, the guy that led me there, the guy that had the faith in me and, you know, stuck his neck out and also drove me to work my ass off like I did for that long. When he left and sold out on the business, made a lot of money, extremely successful, he granted me the company's training program. He passed the training program down to me. So here I go from this guy who probably on paper had no business even getting the job. And some might say, oh, well, it was his dad's friend. Like, that's how he got into the job. And like, you know, people said that kind of shit all the time. Oh yeah, you're always protected with Brad because, you know,
they say this to your face.
Oh yeah, either behind my back or even sometimes to my face while I was there. You know, it's like, well, you always be protected because, you know, Brad's friends with your dad. And I'm like, I spend every day with Brad. Okay. Our relationship far supersedes the relationship that brought me into the organization. Anyway, nevertheless.
Bro, again, man, I'm telling you, this is like good shit because as much as my sob story is sobby, I don't have to deal with any of that shit. I get to, now this is what's interesting about me, right? Is I look like you, like we look like we can literally be brothers, right? So like I have all the judgment right off the break, but I let them know real fucking quick, like who I am, where I come from, because I hate that thought. Like what I'm getting at is like, I just spoke at this event in any circle, anytime. I get that information out within minutes. If I'm going on the stage, I lead with who and I tell my story right away. And in a way, there's like sympathy, there's empathy, there's even like, oh man. And I watch people, like I watch them go, oh shit, I just assume you came from like the country club. Or I read your bio and you went to an Ivy League school. Like did you fucking golf in college? It's like, no, I actually took
my love for beating the shit out of people, and I harnessed it on to wrestling, because in middle school I got in so many fights that I was like going to get seriously in trouble, and I figured I need to do this on the football field and on the wrestling mat, or I'm going to end up in jail. So I'm saying that to say that, like, I hate that feeling so much that you just described, that I am like immediately let people know, like, don't treat me that way. And you had to be treated like that and kind of do maybe permanently. I don't envy you, man. That's hard shit.
It was, yeah, it was always that kind of, even there, the times where I worked so hard and had so much that I earned, I still felt pulled back in some way to this B-level parachute that you can coast with a 3.0 because you have everything that people don't have. You have a wealthy upbringing, you have a good family, you know, you now, in the professional sense, even up until like my early 30s, before I started East Park Avenue when I was 33, 34, you know, almost 5 years ago. And even up until then, it was like, well, you know, you're always going to be safe because you're Brad's favorite, or, you know, Brad's buddies with your dad. So not until he left the company that I start to look around and I'm seeing, wow, I was one of the first 15 employees at this firm. And now there's like over 100, and I'm leading national recruiter training. I'm literally coaching and training new recruiters coming into this company from somebody who had no business even being a recruiter. Now I'm training recruiters.
Didn't even know what recruiting was. Yeah.
Didn't even know what recruiting was. And so I look around, and it was that I think that push that I had from the initial joining the industry that started speaking to me when I put together a business plan during the dog days of COVID, and went to the firm's new ownership, whatever, after my mentor had left. And I presented a new idea, a different line of business, a whole different framework of the recruiting and staffing business devoted to training, coaching, and consulting, and working with growing businesses to solve their turnover issues, to solve their long overdue vacancies, to solve their terrible hires that they keep making, to solve their infrastructure related problems, their company-wide gaps with respect to hiring. And I said, guys, there's a boutique type of white glove treatment.
Yeah.
You know, we can still balance both sides of the business. And the ownership group shut me down saying, look, if you empower growing businesses with the tools and the technique and also the backing from an expert like yourself, if you empower them with this,
they won't need us.
They won't need us anymore.
Interesting.
And I thought it was just so incredibly short-sighted. And I popped open a beer to my now wife, as one does, and was just like, I can't believe these guys wouldn't even give it a thought. You know, okay, so you could say it's COVID, no risk. Right. I don't want any risk. And I was one of the senior guys. So they're like, you need to sell, cold call, beg for business. And I'm like, it's COVID. I don't think that's the best use of my credibility and my clout in the industry. And my wife said, you know, dude, you got to start a business. You know, the industry, you've got the drive, you've got the plan, you know, it's going to work. And I shit you not, I started an LLC and bought a ring within like 90 days.
That's awesome.
Because that's what commitment, somebody truly believing in me more than I had ever in my whole life had believed in myself. Pretty crazy. And that's how I'm an entrepreneur.
Dude, that's sick. You got a great story, man. That's fucking awesome. I'm pumped for, like, because I think you're cool. Like I fuck with you, you know? So like from when we met 2 years ago, I'm like, Mark's cool. Like I would hang out with him, play golf. He teach me some shit. But I'm real stoked for My Core Collective now. Because I feel like we've been kind of teasing this story out a little bit. And I don't know how often you tell it this way. I mean, do you get the opportunity to like share a lot of that?
Not so far in the past, not as far back as we've gone, but I think that that's honestly, it's more pivotal than the success I had in the recruiting industry, um, because those times in that moment, that pivotal moment, of feeling like if I fail, I besmirch my dad's name, the junior, Alan Mark Wojcik Jr.
Right.
His name is besmirched if I don't make this work.
I mean, the
That
fact that you even said besmirched proves how authentic your fucking white privilege is. Fuck out of here, bro. Fuck out of here.
I don't know that I've ever said that word, dead ass.
Oh, I love it. But see, this
Uh,
is really good shit because I speak to it like I literally just did this past weekend, right? And I'm like, look, I get that I have white privilege, that I have pretty privilege, like, cool, whatever. But the overarching theme is like work with what you got. God gave you lemons, make some lemonade. And you don't
sure.
get to choose which family you're born to, the color of your skin, which country you were born into. The only thing you really get the opportunity to do is to have an immense amount of gratitude for it and then find it. Like 24 might have felt late, but that's relative to your father who'd been grinding probably like me since he was a child.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
don't want what you don't want, and I wouldn't trade places with a lot of people, but the fact that you've now found it, and I'm sure that shit rears its head. There's probably days where you're like, I'm not a B student. I'm not a B student. I'm not a B student. And you pack it in and you're like, fuck, I'm a B student. It's like, no, dude, you're just tired, bro. Like I have fucking D- days, One of my things that I kind of live by, and I've actually shared this with a few people. It's just one of these like world according to Nathan things. And then I've had people be like, yo, that changed my life. I'm like, oh shit. If you're not first, you're last. So I look at the week, the 7 days of the week, like the NBA Finals or the World Series or the Stanley Cup. And I'm like, all right, I got to win 4 of these days. If I win 4, like I can fuck off on 3 of them.
Yes.
Because otherwise it's too much damn pressure. But compounded over time, those 4 days of working out, those 4 days of crushing it, those 4 days of maybe even dressing the part, like whatever the thing is that just makes you feel like I'm the man, I'm the man, I'm the man, 4 of the days, you let yourself off the hook the other 3 and you still win. And it's true. It's proven out for me. I mean, if I get a 5th, like I just got a 5th workout and awesome. But most weeks, especially with trying to balance this thing called life, there's no freaking way you're going to win 7 out of 7. It's not a 7 apples on Sunday that keeps the doctor away. It's an apple a day. So anyway, it sounds like you probably still battle with that, because I battle with it on like the flip side where like the bear's always chasing me. And when I have to try to relax and I've even like earned the right to relax, I fucking can't. You know what I mean? I'm like, I should be working right now. It's like, bro, you're on the beach with your kids on a Saturday. Chill.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if any of that resonates with you, but yeah.
100. And even up until this year, recently, close friends of mine whenever we talk about business challenges or the ups and down roller coaster as a business owner, and admittedly this year has been a down year. There's been a lot of reinvention, a lot of working on the business, and so there's a lot of things that are being set up for future success, which is I'm okay with it. But even when I catch myself dipping into that kind of lonesome negative mindset that I'm not good enough, I can't make it, I compare myself to other entrepreneurs that are in their 5th year business driving Maseratis and have private equity investment and they're on boards of companies and they're 38 years old as well. But that I compare myself in some cases. But even when buddies of mine will say, hey, if you're having a down time, like, you could always, have you ever thought of going back and working like for a company?
But you have friends that say this?
Yeah. As like a friendly suggestion, knowing that,
right.
and it might be me crying in my beer or whatever. And the question hits me at the wrong time where it's like, how's work? And I fully anticipate kicking ass tomorrow, waking up and doing it again. Like I'm not there is no turning back. Like I've fallen in love with this lifestyle, whether I die rich as you know, a banker would or otherwise.
Right.
I'm rich in other ways for sure. And I
Mark,
know I
this
could
is so
go.
important, man. Like I was just at this event, so it's all fresh. I did a lot of speaking this past weekend, so I'm probably just in my like zone or whatever. But I talked about again, another biblical reference. The verse says, "Don't throw your pearls to the swine," and it's a pretty brutal message because your dreams, your goals, your hopes, your pearls, they're not meant for the swine, and that often gets confused with like haters gonna hate. But it's actually the people that are closest to you. It's some of your closest friends, family, can be significant others. And I give them grace because I think, well, you know what? They're just trying to protect me. And that's perfectly valid, right? Like their goal is to say like, hey, you know, you got a lot on the line. Or if it's not, you gave it 5 years and it's not where you thought, you know, you could actually net out more money in a job. And it's like, yeah, but then I didn't create and manifest or actualize or see through the thing that I said I was going to do. Don't you know enough about my background that that's the fucking core issue, is that I quit shit, you know what I mean? Or I don't see it through, or I don't perform at a high level over an extended period of time, that I have failure to launches. Like that's where that grit can be found. You don't have to be born in poverty to find grit. You got to find it psychologically. By the way, the whole thing that gets me excited about your story is that at some point that bottom rung, like my food, water, shelter has been secured for a while now. And if all my life, my drive was to solve that because that was my origin story, then I would have lost my drive a long time ago. So I had to like I had to like make the whole thing psychological. I don't know how you'd say that, like psychologicalize, you know, like I had to like make it a mental battle, not a physical one, or a spiritual battle, not a physical one, pretty early, or I was going to get those needs met. And that's why a lot of people that are born in poverty will choose security, be it the military or a government job, because they're just terrified of ever being back in that world. So the fact that you like clocked that at 24 and knew this whole damn thing's a mental game anyway, that was really probably the moment it had a 10-year delay where you're like entrepreneurial, figure it the fuck out brain. I'm not quitting. I'm not fucking leaving. Started. So that's cool that 5 years in, you're like, let's fucking go. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I know I could go and be the director of recruiting
Of course.
at, you know, whatever, fill in the blank corporation, Dunkin' Donuts. I don't know. All right.
Right.
I could get that job and make 165K base plus bonus and stock and all these great things. But also I know that I would then revert back to the mentality and that same structure that I grew up in of it's a very low bar that I already knew I'm going to be well above the majority of my surroundings in capability, intellect, social acumen.
And just your programming, like you were born into excellence. So like in your DNA, in your like nature, nurture, you were named after and like watched, modeled after a high caliber human. So you're naturally going to excel. It's kind of fucked to say it, but like your worst is better than most people's best. Like that's what gifting and talents are. So, and programming, and somebody paid that cost. Like it might've been that your dad paid the price, and that's the way legacy can work and the power of imprinting. But you like took your, I don't know, privilege, douchebaggish potential, and you killed that shit at 24. If you were 40 still living that way, and you're like the guys in old school that go back to the fraternity on the college campus, then like, yeah, we got some major issues. Like I certainly wouldn't fuck with you at that point. But if you're saying, nah, it just took me a few years, and then I got on this path, and then I was like, I'm not screwing this up because I'm not just Brad's friend's son. I actually show up and work and do the deal. And now into your entrepreneurial journey, I think there's one other thing that I would like never forget, dude, because I have this in common with you too, is that you're building an original. And when you're building an original, that's a totally different animal because you have this whole other component, which is softening the market, educating people on a new way of looking at it, and getting through. Arthur Schopenhauer said that all ideas, trends, even diseases go through 3 stages. He said first they will be ridiculed, then they'll be opposed, often violently opposed, and then they'll prove self-evident. And the part that's really interesting is only 3% of people get involved in the early stages, and 97% of people get involved after the fact. So I like to look at America as an example of this. You know, when the founding fathers came together, they were obviously ridiculed at the idea of breaking free and becoming their own, you know, United States. And then they were not just opposed, they were violently opposed. It's known as the Revolutionary War. And then that proved self-evident, and we've been a country for all these years. So in a way, like that moment where you realize, wait, there's a better way to build interdependence between the client and the firm and not keep them in the dark so that they have to keep paying us these monies because they're not equipped and we're not teaching them how to fish. That takes freaking time. So it might take you another 5 years for the market to like get privy to that and to soften up. And as millennials, we're still not in like the highest positions of power in a lot of these companies. There's got to be like some retirement and some aging out before the 42-year-old guy goes, oh, this is exactly what we're looking for. And you land that big fucking client. That might be 7 years from now because that dude's 35 right now, not 42. And the guy that's 67 is still running the show, but then he's 72 and his retirement party happens. And you're like, finally get the fuck out of here so that I can talk to my peer. So anyway, I'm saying that to say that like playing the long game on an original idea is an absolute must.
And it's crazy too. It's crazy, Nathan. I mentioned that theory. I can't pronounce the guy's name that you said, but it was never ridiculed. Like when I brought this business forward, the only person that ridiculed it, the only group that ridiculed it was my own firm of a decade. Right. My mentor had left, my advocate, my champion had left. And, you know, I was dealing with a new group of people, but everybody that I polled before starting the business was like, holy shit, that is outrageously good. That I've never heard of something like that. And now to this day, every time if I had $1 for how many times, if I had $1 for every time someone said to me, hiring coach? You're like a hiring coach for growing businesses? I've never heard of something like that.
Yeah.
If I had $1, we wouldn't be talking because I'd be on the beach right now and I have no reason to even talk to you. I'd be rich. No one's ever heard of it. It's like it's almost like in some cases early on, I would have had more success in the first couple of years if I had competitors, because again, goes back to that me at my worst versus them at their best.
Right.
And I've got enough to hedge my bets at my worst versus them at their best. I did that throughout my recruiting career. In the industry of being a charismatic person who is a good foster of goodwill and does things the right way, does what he says he's going to do, lives by his word, build strong, trusting relationships. But it's almost as if I had more competition early on, I would have started
soften the market.
faster. So I appreciate that vote of confidence. And I see that the future is bright. And even on these days where I find myself getting comfortable again, I've got an unbelievable accountability partner, my wife. She's my best friend without a doubt. And she's the one that holds me grounded, that when I want to sink back into 3.0 Joe mindset, even just hell the other day, I mean, this is a few weeks ago, we were having a couple of drinks Friday night, sitting out on the porch, just loving life and listening to some tunes and just vibing. It'd been a good week or something. just saying, I feel even now with Lucy, our daughter, I said, we got 2 years under the belt, 2.5 years under the belt, a full scale year of daycare, under our belt. I said, I feel like we really got the financial pieces. Yeah, I could always be making more. Her job's a great job. It's very secure for us, benefits and the whole thing. And I said, we're kind of clicking right now. I feel like, we got it kind of sorted out with life with 3, and as soon as that comes out of my mouth, and at the time it kind of frustrated me, but now I look at it as a blessing. Like Brad telling me, saying, hey, if this doesn't work out, I got to talk to your dad to make sure there's no hard feelings.
Right.
She said, well, we are in a good spot, but what if we wanted to have a second baby? And it just hit me as soon as I was trying to get comfortable and coast, and I can not study.
Settle in. Yeah.
I can get a 3.0 and I'll get into college or whatever. I can just show up on Monday and I'm not going to get fired, that kind of thing. And it brought me back into the mindset that, yeah, you know what? I do have to stay grinding.
Yeah.
And I got to keep my eyes on the future prize. And so it's helped me to snap out of that mindset that I carried through all
women
my
will
life.
do that for you real quick, right?
Crazy.
It's the double-edged sword, because she's the one that spoke the boat of confidence and life into you and belief, and then she confounds you like, yeah, but we're gonna have another kid, so you need to make another 50 grand net. You're like, fuck. Like, yep, okay, let's do it. Cheers, damn it. But every level has its devil, right? So it's like, you don't want to. It's funny, your name too, man. Like this sort of narrative of the grades, because that's often called your marks, right? Like your, so that's just an interesting thought, that your name is fitting for this idea that like you default to a B student, which is this like attitude of gratitude, this stewardship, where if you just stay there, you'll fool most people, because they'll go, oh shit, I had to work really hard to live in this neighborhood, or I had to, struggle to get those grades or go to that school or have that and this. But you fucking know. You know what I mean? Like when you lay your head down at night, or when you wake up in the morning. So that's cool, man. Like to have this interesting, like the struggle is real at every level, even if it's the privileged to purposeful level. It's cool.
Yeah. I think there's an age component as well. Like I look back, my parents had me when they were 26. We had our daughter when I was 36. My wife's a few years younger.
Yeah.
I was 36. And I look back at myself at 26, that I was just like in my second year of recruiting. Had I had a kid at that point, I don't even want to speculate. Right. But that, looking at my parents and my dad, again, that drive, that work ethic, he was 26, 27, 28 years old, being like, I got a wife at home. I got a kid at home. Wife's not working. I gotta freaking make this work.
Yeah.
Life was the Brad of his world, saying, I'm going to have to tell life there's no hard feelings if you don't make this work out. But for me now, with that new 2-year drive, like always focused on what's ahead and where the future where we need to be in the future. And then how am I going to apply myself week to week, day to day, to make sure that we get there, not only get there, but exceed it.
Yeah, man.
Now, for the first time in my life, I really, really am trying to make an A.
Yeah. That's freaking cool, dude. Well, I'm here for it, and we would not have asked you to speak and lead and be part of our inaugural. I mean, we're now kicking off this event, the My Core Collective, and I'm pumped to hear your story from stage. I think people meeting you. I mean, it's kind of wild that we haven't met in person yet. So that's that'll be cool too. We'll kick it. And tell us a little bit as we kind of land the plane for today. I know you're going to get a little bit into this story. We had more time to unpack it here, but what are some of the like subjects and themes that you're going to be sharing at My Core Collective here in a couple weeks?
Yeah, so it's changing the perception that many small businesses and growing businesses have about hiring, and the focus and the intention that they make towards hiring, and hiring related activities. Most all businesses we work with, they say that talent is the most important thing in the world to them. And then when we peek underneath the hood, we realize that they're not really putting their money where their mouth is, figuratively and literally. They're not putting their, they're getting back what kind of effort that they put in, which goes along in parallel with my story and kind of leading with who. They're expecting A results when they're giving B or sometimes C or D level effort. They're expecting A results when they don't quite look in the mirror and realize what their company has to offer or what their company is to the public. And so the basis of the talk is, if it's entitled "Recruit Your Replacement: Big Shoes to Fill," and it's educating and getting small businesses to look at hiring as if they were in the other shoe. The shoe was on the other foot, right? So how would you need to position yourself, communicate your value proposition? Where would you need to look? How hard would you need to work? How hard would you need to hunt to get someone like you? Right. Good. So many people look at it like, okay, well, it's a customer service position. Oh, it's a manufacturing position. It's paying $18 an hour. Just, go through the motions.
Right.
We just need
to find somebody that can do what the job requires.
Post it. Just post it. Right. But not really putting themselves in the other person's shoes. So like, what would you need to hear to recruit yourself? And so put yourself in that point at that time, in that seat, and be that person on the other end of the table. Could you, would that effort, would that pitch, would that communication style, would that attitude, would that posture, would that recruit you to this job? So people here recruit your replacement, like, okay, plan for your future growth as a company.
Yeah,
sure.
Succession or something. Yeah.
It means that. Right. Yeah. But the point of this talk at My Core Collective is more focused on self-actualization. Is how do I recruit from a reverse engineered recruiting and hiring strategy?
Dude, that's sick. I love I feel like we've just compiled it all right here. Even that little Maslow's hierarchy of need reference there, right? That's just, you've reached that self-actualization to the point where, I mean, every level has its devil. I certainly haven't arrived, but I know you've been working with my team and seeing the caliber of people that I've been blessed to be entrusted with and have attracted. It's because of that mentality 100%. Like if somebody were to ask me, like, how'd you do it? And I'm like, well, right letters, wrong order. It's not HOW, it's WHO. I worked so hard on who I had to be and who one would need to be to attract that person that I did recruit my replacement. I recruited people that have the same values and the same mission and the same drive, and then just their giftings, what I would call the whats, are different. And I think so many people are starting with and leading with what. Particularly, you see this every day where they say, well, this is the role and these are the responsibilities. We need a person that can do those things. And it's like, okay, but like, who are they? You know what I mean? Like, do they have grit? Do they have drive? And in a way, you're trying to create, not trying to, you're creating an environment and a culture and a message and a language that attracts the Mark that from age 24, when he missed the mark, didn't really give a shit, then has that really sobering conversation and goes, okay, I've got
I got to hit the mark. You know what I mean? I got to exceed the target. So that's really cool, man. I'm excited to see that come to life. I think that'll be really valuable for the audience.
Super. Yeah, I'm excited too. Be a lot of fun. West Coast, Oregon lifestyle. Duck country.
Doug,
Ducks.
have you ever been out
Right.
there?
I've been to Portland. My sister used to live in Portland for a year or so, and so I visited her a couple times when she lived out there. But I've only ever been to Portland and just exploring the greater Portland area and some of the hiking and waterfalls and Willamette Valley wine country. Right, you got to pronounce that correctly.
Willamette, damn it, yeah, it's a beautiful area. I mean, there's some odd birds in that area. Speaking of ducks,
Sure.
but it'll be cool, man. We're gonna have an awesome time. They believe this episode will drop before then. We're going to try to get them all out. And for those of you listening, if you haven't gotten your tickets to My Core Collective, it's not too late. We're actually going to let you in at the door. I think we have enough space. But, dude, it's sick, man. I've been out there now twice. It's on the 12th floor of the building, and it's a 360-degree, like, ceiling to awesome. Floor windows. And all you see is, like, nature mixed with downtown Eugene. When you walk into the room, it's really interesting. You know, when you go to the eye doctor, I don't know if you've ever had eye issues, but when you go to the eye doctor, they make you like look in this thing, and there's always like a road, and then there's like this little house at the end.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Sure.
It's wild. When you get off the elevator and you're walking into the room, there's like nothing but like woods, and then there's like this little house, this really cool looking house at the end. And it's kind of trippy, actually. And then you walk into the room and you can see the rest. But you're going to feel like a freaking rock star, because on that stage, you're going to like feel like you're on top of like the world, because it's the highest building in the city. And then there'll be a stage, and all around you is windows and nature. And then obviously you'll be talking to the attendees. So I think you're going to dig it, man. I think it'll boost your confidence. And I'm stoked about it.
Well, glad to be there, and I appreciate the time to talk with you today. It's been self-reflecting. You know, I'm fired up. I want to make a couple sales calls now.
Heck yeah, man! And again, I want to commend you, man. I know that, like, especially like just two bros talking about deep shit, it isn't always like, super fun, you know. So I appreciate you going there with me, man.
I dig it. No, I appreciate it, Nathan. It was good. Yeah, I look forward to hanging out with you in a few weeks.
Yeah, heck yeah. Awesome. Peace, brother.
All righty. See ya.